Oh, that was a great one. Exchange yesterday. Did you catch that one?
No.
With the scarf lady and some reporter from Yahoo.
Welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada and the world's Freedom Talk Radio.
Can they hear us in Sao Paulo?
They can hear us in Sao Paulo. They can
about
hear
Johannesburg?
Johannesburg.
Sydney, Australia?
If it's not censored, they can hear us in Beijing.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. Just go to www.americamatters.us.
Uh-huh.
All right. Yep. Very good. So,
or you can watch us on Facebook as well.
Yes, we have a channel on Facebook, Talking Truth to Power. You can watch us there, and then Leland, you put it on your YouTube channel too, don't you?
We do. We have a YouTube version of it. Yep.
Okay. So we're getting out there, you know.
We sure are. It's not our fault if you don't get it.
So we're just to give you a little update on the coronavirus. I know you're getting a lot through the media. It's nothing but corona, you know.
I've noticed.
COVID. The 12 states are starting to open up this week. They're mostly the more rural red states. The blue states are still closed and even extending their lockdown.
But I heard Steve is now aligning himself with the left coast.
Steve who?
Our governor, Steve.
Oh.
I just refer to him as Steve.
Oh, you do? Okay. I don't even know his first name.
I don't want to give him legitimacy by mentioning his last name. He's such a moron.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so he's not going to open up anytime soon.
Hopefully he'll be closed down.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can close him down. Find that petition. Let's recall this guy.
You know, the mayor of Las Vegas was right. I mean, it's not up to her to tell these casinos how to use best practices.
Oh, they just tried to shame her. That was pathetic. And guess who? Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper, yes.
CIA Anderson.
Yeah, she hung in there, though. She did a good job.
And the A in CIA stands for Anderson.
Yeah. All right. So, you know, I'm drinking my Trump cocktail this morning.
I see that.
Yeah, I got a glass of water with a splash of Lysol.
Oh, very good.
And
that should work. I saw some of those memes were absolutely hysterical. Did you see the one with the guys in a hospital bed and he's all hooked up, you know, intravenously to Lysol and Clorox? I couldn't have had more fun than to see the left cringe at our. You know, as we went back at them.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been told to stop spitballing ideas in front of the hostile mainstream media.
Perhaps, but I enjoy the hell out of them.
And, you know, you can buy UV lights on Amazon that will disinfect, but they're not, the cheaper ones that you get on Amazon are not safe. You have to do it one room at a time and get your pets out, but it will disinfect your room.
Oh, you have to get the pets out of the room?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The UVC lamps, I guess, are more expensive, but the regular UV lights will do the job. Just you have to take precautions with them. So,
but if they were small enough, you could ingest the bulb into
little nanotechnology.
Is that unreasonable?
Why couldn't we have nanotechnology? They're always talking about it. You know, little tiny UV lights going through your system. That would probably do it.
I think so.
All right. Now, another interesting thing is that some doctors now are using nicotine as a form of therapy.
Yeah, I heard that.
You know,
sponsored by the national...
the anti-smoking left, I mean, they were saying tobacco has no use whatsoever. You know, nicotine is just evil. You must not go near nicotine. But
yeah, you don't know who to trust, whether that's the tobacco lobby suggesting this or the Democrats in...
Yeah, but I mean, all these nicotine has uses. I mean, the Indians smoked it, right?
Well, it's a stimulant.
It's a stimulant. It promotes clarity of thought, many people think. And it's also been shown to prevent Alzheimer's disease, or at least slow down the onset of Alzheimer's. So it's not a totally evil drug, and most of the damage is done from the chemicals in the cigarette and not the nicotine itself.
Well, it says on drugs that there's more drug hope on the way. So
yeah. Remdesivir, did I pronounce it right?
Your assumption is as good as mine.
Yep. About a week ago, they were saying it didn't work. Now they have a new study that came out, and even Dr. Fauci's all on it, saying that maybe it does work. So we don't know. We're taking
Fauci knows these things.
Yeah, he knows everything.
He understands there's a second wave that's inevitable.
Right.
So
we have to build up herd immunity.
Ignore him at your own peril.
Right.
Because, yes, we do need to build up herd immunity. Yeah.
So,
or as others have said, herd, they misrepresent the expression. They say herd, what is it, the expression that we used before.
I don't know. Are you having a Biden moment?
No, it's not. I just, well, it could be. I'm right behind him in age.
Yeah. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the latest going on with the Democrat candidate for president.
Herd mentality.
Yes, herd mentality?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've noticed people that are reaching for that herd immunity expression often go to herd mentality instead.
Okay.
And I just did the same thing.
Yeah. But, people are starting to kill themselves. People are drinking a lot. When they're confined to their home,
alcohol
which could lead
is
to
essential.
Depression. Yeah, look at Finland and the Russia, at least in the old days. I mean, they're heavy drinking countries. Japan, a heavy drinking country, a lot of suicides. So we've got to watch out for that. So I'm glad they're keeping the marijuana dispensaries open, because that usually doesn't lead to suicide.
Yeah, as long as we get our food, we can...
Yeah, as long as if the food isn't disrupted.
Yeah, that's been my concern from day one.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about it on here because I didn't want that concern to be spread around the world.
Well, don't tell anyone, but I'm going to Costco right after this because I'm going to get a few steaks and pork chops.
I was looking around at freezers over the last couple of days, just as in an act of desperation in case we can't get the meat. But then Trump solved that problem yesterday too.
He did say that
this is the guy you want.
Order them back to work. Yeah.
In a crisis like this.
Yep.
This is the guy you want.
You have to do it. All right. So when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about.
We're going somewhere?
VP Biden and his new slogan: "Poke and change."
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good
Getting to know you.
Let me tell you about America Matters with Eddie Floyd. It comes on every Monday at noon. Don't want you to miss it. That's America Matters with Eddie Floyd.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. I'm Brendan Traynor, your host, along with Leland Faegre. And we're here to discuss...
we're busier here today, I think.
Yeah.
Did you know I didn't get quite as preferred parking as I did last week?
Well, yeah, we're here at the Reno Town Mall, and there are a few more cars in the parking lot.
Yeah, I see a lot more people
starting to wander around. That's good.
Yep.
And I think keep Nevadans down.
Now, does the lockdown end officially tomorrow in Nevada? Is that what I heard? And is he going to start opening up county by county? Because that's what I think he's going to do.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
You know, we haven't had anybody infected in Douglas County for 3 weeks.
So Sisolak is preparing a statement for Thursday
about
whatever his plans might be, and he hasn't given any indication of what that could be.
And yet he wants to align Nevada with the left coast.
Yeah.
California, Oregon, and Washington.
Of course, that's the Democrats' ultimate plan, you know.
Blew himself down.
Yeah. But, I mean, Clark County is, as most urban areas are, it's much harder hit than up north and in the rural counties. I mean, so
we should let them go, actually.
Yeah.
Let Arizona take it.
Yeah.
We'd be better off.
So Biden appeared on a podcast with his wife, Jill, and then at the end he was unable to remember, or he couldn't read, because apparently it was on a teleprompter, the closing remarks. And he went into a couple of unintelligible words. So finally Jill jumped in.
To help him out?
Yeah, she helped him out. She gave a rousing report that
wouldn't be the first time.
No. And but the thing is that the framing was bad. She must be much shorter, or else she was sitting down and he was standing up. And the camera didn't go to her face when she started the speech. It stayed on the two of them. And so you could see Biden's reaction. And he looked like Jeff Dunham's puppet, Old Man Wally, if you know what I mean. He had that crescent moon, big frown on his face.
I think I saw that still from the event. Yeah,
yes.
I know what you're talking about.
And he was kind of staring blankly.
And that was from his basement, right?
Yeah.
So everything's supposed to be right in there.
You're right.
He's got it customized for himself,
right?
And yet it still doesn't come off well.
And then he was looking sad and distant like that until the very end when Jill said, "And vote for Biden," and then a smile. He lit up in a smile, but. I mean, that was really sad to see. I mean, that looks like somebody that is really upset that he can't do it anymore. You know, he has no basic cognition anymore.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
And, you know, he's in there with people who are on his side, and yet he still can't pull it off, you know.
Right.
That's the part that just... Because, Joe, just... You stay right there. We'll take care of everything for you. You know, that's.
Yep. And he's got the hashtag Dropout Joe going against him, and but Bernie is kicked off the New York ballot.
Yeah.
So his whole so-called strategy of saying I'm going to suspend the election, but go ahead and vote for me because. And Joe Biden is my friend.
And so where are those voters going? Are they going to go to Joe?
Well, they can't in New York anymore.
Yeah, because there'll be no primary there as of yesterday. So they may have sunk him, you know, because if he can't come in to the convention with the delegates he needs on that first ballot, all bets are off.
Yeah, unless they change the rules again.
And guess who endorsed him as all this was happening yesterday?
Oh, yes, we saw that.
Did you see that?
Yes. Our old friend Hillary Clinton.
Hillary herself.
Yeah.
And she has no compunction for concern about Tara Reade either.
No. And there are a few feminists that are recognizing something is amiss here, something serious has to be done. And so to their credit, they're starting to say she has to be heard. But the original mantra was
to be believed.
The servers have to be believed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So nobody's saying she has to be believed.
No.
Not a soul saying that.
Not a soul is saying that. Nope.
And yet she has a much more believable case.
Oh, sure.
Than
now we have
their case against.
Yeah, I mean, her mother called into Larry King, another friend, not related to her, that she talked to about 4 or 5 years later after the incident.
And a Hillary supporter.
Crying. Yeah.
Wasn't she also a
Hillary supporter says she's still going to vote for Biden.
Going to vote for Biden, but Biden's lying.
Yes.
Those are people, they have scruple, don't they? They are.
Yeah, they are. I know. And Nancy Pelosi told Jack Tapper to calm down. Did you see that?
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
No.
Jack Tapper was saying, something about what about all the workers and Pelosi, she said, calm down. We're going to send them an ice cream pop, every one of them.
I'll bet you she's got enough ice cream to send out, doesn't she? Yeah.
And he did. He calmed down.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, these people have no scruple at all.
Uh-huh.
Basically, they're just tools of the Democrat establishment.
Right.
That's what the mass media is to them.
Yep.
Did you notice yesterday, since we're in it's time sensitive, so it's important to talk about it now, but did you notice that during that endorsement that Hillary pulled off for Joe, Joe's just sitting there just like just like an animal, basically. Just sit there, Joe, You don't have to say a word. And MSNBC and CNN didn't cover it live.
Oh, they didn't cover it live? No.
I always go over to see if they're covering what's going on.
Live, yeah.
And they weren't there.
So they could edit it down if necessary.
I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, to protect Joe.
And I think his podcasts are heavily edited, but that podcast with Jill got out without being edited, so that was embarrassing.
It really is.
And a reporter asked him about Hunter and China, and he got all defensive. Yeah, there's nothing. I had nothing to do with that.
The thing.
Yeah.
You know the thing.
Oh boy, do we ever.
Yes. So, what is going to happen here to the Dems? What are they going to do?
I think there's a lot of scenarios here that can play out, and I think that's the way they want it at this point, because they're really not sure how to proceed here. First of all, I want to be on record as having said that Kamala Harris will be his running mate if they think they can't beat Trump. Because I think it's all determined on whether they think he's within a shot of being defeated.
So otherwise, if they think he can, did you say can or
if he can, if they look like they can beat him, it'll be Hillary, because Hillary is a much stronger candidate. Otherwise, they're going to throw Joe away, and they don't care who's number 2 on the ballot. And I think that's why Kamala Harris figures to be the most likely, and the geography, because California's on the left coast. So.
Well, there's something to be said for the elites in both parties don't really want to win when the opposition is in power, because they can raise so much more money being the opposition.
And it doesn't hurt their down ballot.
Right.
And these people are just throwaways anyway for the next, the next presidential general election. But, I mean, we've seen this before, going back to McGovern. I was just a kid. I was 18 years old, and they just threw him away. We've seen this with Dukakis, Mondale. It's a scenario that happens every so often, and this is how they do it. They just put somebody on there, knowing fully well they're not going to win.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Uh-huh. And with the only time an incumbent is lost is George H.W. Bush, and then he had Ross Perot as well.
Right. We had a serious third-party challenger there. Plus, he had already promised no new taxes.
Right.
He didn't have anything going for him there. Plus, he was unworthy of the Oval Office anyway.
Well, they all are, in my opinion.
Until Bush, they were all globalists, and so all of them were unworthy. Yeah, they did not care about the United States of America. Period.
Right. George H.W. Bush was a little bit better in foreign policy than a lot of them, I think.
How so?
Well, he didn't jump on the Soviet Union, the demise of the Soviet Union. That was mostly Clinton that did that, and he.
But I think that was easy for him. I mean, it wasn't that he was going out of his way.
He did go out of his way in rhetoric. He made some speeches that were quite conciliatory. Whether it would have worked out, I mean, James Baker was a better than average Secretary of State.
You think that H.W. Bush was conciliatory to Russia? Is that what you're saying? The Soviet Union?
At least in rhetoric.
Well, I think that's consistent with globalism. I don't think that's anything to celebrate.
Well, no, I mean, what...
he wasn't pushing for war, if that's what you're saying.
Right, and he wasn't pushing to exploit them like the neoliberals did when Clinton got in.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Summers, it was just like the Ukraine is today. They were, what happened in the 90s with Russia. They just basically ripped the country off, those and the oligarchs, and Larry Summers, a.k.a. Larry Samuelson, another ethnic.
That's pretty deep there.
Yeah, he was over there ripping the country off, and Russia remembers that, and now it's the same thing with the Ukraine. The Ukraine is filled with democratic spooks and exploiters getting wealthy off the people there. So it's a pattern that we've seen before.
We have seen this before. It's a movie we don't want to see anymore.
No, but of course that's what they're saying China is going to do. We did it, but don't forget about that. But, we got to worry about China because that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I don't see the scenario as the same, although it may appear that way, and it could easily develop into that. But I just don't see it happening because the circumstances are much different here.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about China and what Pat Buchanan has said in a recent article, and others are saying, the new Cold War.
Last week on the show.
Yeah. And it's still happening.
So we're going to let our sponsors identify themselves. And
all right.
We'll be right back.
Home at Last opens doors to family, to freedom, to finally making it yours. Home at Last, a program of the Nevada Rural Housing Authority, opens doors to rural home buyers with incomes of up.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ,
a Lotus broadcast station.
The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now, back to the show.
Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio, and I'm Brendan Traynor. I'm here with my co-host Leland Faegre. And Leland, I was watching Tucker Carlson on the TV screen a few days, and suddenly, before my eyes, he morphed into Rachel Maddow. I screamed, and I looked from Fox News host to MSNBC host, and they all looked the same. The only difference was Maddow and MSNBC were saying, Russia, 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 while Tucker and Fox are screaming, China, China, China. And I remembered a quote I remembered was, the creatures outside looked from pig to man, and man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. George Orwell, The Animal Farm. And I am really worried.
My daughter was asking me about that book just this week.
This week? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's still a classic.
I homeschooled her, and the only reason I didn't give her that one was I thought it was just... at her age, I think it was 13 or 14 at the time. I didn't think she was, it was quite age appropriate for her. But
yes, okay,
yeah.
And so I hope the right-wing sheeple are not going to be stampeded against China like the left-wing sheeple were over Russiagate. But it does appear to be we're in the middle of an orchestrated, psychological, manufactured crisis with China, and. Tucker even had this, quote, former, unquote, CIA intelligence officer named Brian Dean Wright on, who accused prominent Democratic senators like Nancy Feinstein of being actual Chinese agents. And I believe they even sent a letter to them asking them to refute it, which is like, a lawyer telling you, tell me, when did you stop beating your wife type question. And a year ago, Tucker was tearing intelligence guests on his show, a new a-hole. And then we see Jean Pirro up to her deranged rant, spitting out the name China like it was an evil demon. But Saturday Night Live immediately portrayed her as a mean drunk. She missed the first part of the show, and then she showed up disheveled. I don't know whether she's...
Who had showed up disheveled?
Judge Jean.
Saturday Night Live did something on Judge Jean?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How did I not see that?
But she does. Sometimes she does kind of look like she might be, a middle-aged, turning into a middle-aged. Like some older women turn into Catwomen, and some turn into mean drunks. And I
don't know about that because I don't share her space, but she is angry.
Oh yeah, she's always angry.
Yeah, and that doesn't bother me.
No, anger doesn't bother me, but what it is it's a pattern. We're seeing this pattern among conservatives.
Well, I think what's happening here, the ultimate dynamic here is they realize they're losing their globalism.
Right.
And so this is not about an offensive against China as much as it's an offensive against globalism. Because China represents globalism. That's why they were stealing our technology. That's why we had trade deficits with them. Nobody cared about that stuff. Bush was a globalist. Clinton was a globalist. Barack was a globalist. The other Bush was a globalist. So effectively what we've done here, we have a dialectical moment in human history, and we can either seize upon it and claim our sovereignty again, or let those people come back. And that's really what Trump is.
Right. Okay. I basically agree with that, but I don't agree with using propaganda and half-truths.
Well, I don't. Well, to the extent that any of this, we're going to find out because there's an investigation going on. Australia's in. The West is in on this, and we're going to find out. We're going to get a timeline. We're going to know more about this.
What did you say is in Australia?
Australia, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they hate China.
Yeah, it's part of the Five Eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't hate China until Trump entered the landscape. They were all fine with it until...
I don't know about that for sure.
Oh, no, well, nothing
changed.
Have to
look, but they're definitely on the hate China bandwagon now.
There's nothing had changed.
Right.
The trade agreement that culminated in November was Trump's doing. It wasn't Barack Obama's doing.
Right.
And for the right reasons. He was concerned about that trend, the trade deficits, and the technology theft.
Yes, but you've got to understand that from a point of view of globalism, what we're really talking about is the petrodollar system.
Right.
Mm-hmm. President Nixon in 1972 took us off the last vestige of the gold standard that Roosevelt had took us off of in 1932.
Well, it was Nixon that ultimately repudiated it.
Yeah, it was. You couldn't. Ordinary people couldn't own gold, and you couldn't have gold contracts, private gold contracts between businesses to be paid in gold.
I still say we're going back to that.
Yeah, I hope so. That's what Nixon, what FDR did, and then Nixon took us off what was called the gold exchange standard, where countries would settle their debts in gold.
And that was the end of gold.
Yeah, that was the end of gold, except now private
ownership.
Yeah, now you can have that thanks to Ron Paul, among others, but mostly Ron Paul. Now we got that back. But, the reason why he took us off was because of, it was because of the Korean War, the Vietnamese War, and, let's face it, the Great Society, the expansion of the welfare state. Yeah. Which no longer would be sustainable if we're paying our debts in gold.
Not supportable.
Right. So he took us off that, and since then, our debts have been growing rapidly. But the other part of the coin is that we agreed to protect the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Gulf oil if they would buy the oil in dollars.
Instead of developing our own energy independence.
Right.
Which is what most of us were suggesting we should do.
So but there are restrictions on what they can do with the dollars, and they cannot own a major corporation. They can own shares, but not a majority. But they mostly they have to spend those dollars on T-bills. Mm-hmm. So they're buying our debt, and that is what has been fueling the continued welfare state as well as the warfare state. That's how we keep the wars going. If we were on the gold standard, we wouldn't be able to fight all these wars.
No, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, every war we fought, we went off the gold. The Revolutionary War, we issued the Continentals.
Civil
War, we issued Lincoln's Greenbacks. Mm-hmm. And World War I, we also issued paper money, although I think they were redeemable in gold eventually in World War I. And then...
we had the Federal Reserve at that point.
Yeah. We just had the Federal Reserve come in a couple of years...
That changed everything.
A couple of years earlier. And in World War II, we had the voluntary income tax... which somehow turned out not to be so voluntary after the war was over.
Is that what that was?
Yeah. And also in the 19th century, we had the constitutional direct tax, which nobody remembers because we've only used it a few times.
I wasn't quite here yet.
Yeah. But the idea was that if all of our representatives vote to go to war, then it's everybody's responsibility. Yeah. So then the government could impose a direct tax, an apportioned tax. Mm-hmm. And so now we don't declare war, and it's nobody's responsibility.
Not since the Second World War.
But we're depending on other countries to pay for our wars. Mm-hmm. And this is what is the real threat is, in my opinion.
Well, among others, yes.
Yeah, that's
huge.
One of the huge threats. And I mean, China is an enormous country with, 1.5 billion people. They don't have all the natural resources. They have to export a lot, and that's what they do.
They got that rare earth stuff, though.
Yeah, they do. They have things that we need that could be a national security. And I said that, I've said that even Adam Smith said that if you're in a free trade situation, if for national security, you can bring back supply lines and try and do it yourself, even if you're not as efficient.
Well, we're definitely doing that. That's going to happen.
Yeah, but then they're also talking about pulling back all kinds of supply chains.
Well, I'm interested in
all that.
is what their reaction to all of this, because this is clearly a Cold War.
Right.
And it's going to be very interesting to see what their reaction to all of this is. 6 months from now, it's going to be a different landscape.
Oh, you mean because of the virus?
No, well, because of China.
Okay.
Never mind the virus. Yeah, I mean, that clearly was what broke the camel's back. But I mean, these problems were existent long before we heard about a virus called corona.
Oh yeah. I know we've had a lot of problems and so on, but the main problem is we are now a nation that's primary purpose is to wage war, and has been for quite a while
prior to Trump.
Well, actually, 93% of American history. In terms of years, 90% of the years in American history, we've either used force or the credible threat of force to change a country's public policy. In other words, if we weren't actually bombing them or invading them, we were sending our warships to intimidate them or do something else to intimidate them into changing their policy.
Yeah, post-Lincoln, effectively, it all changed from Lincoln on. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't have been possible had Lincoln not subverted.
The Spanish-American War.
The
Philippines. Nobody remembers the Philippine revolt that killed, along with disease, killed over 100,000 Filipinos. And so it's going to be a changing world. But we don't need all this extra tension that's coming up by an orchestrated.
Well, I don't think the tension is unjustified, considering the mischief that apparently was playing out at the end of last year. Now, we're going to see the extent to which there's a lot of Chinese-centric propaganda that has clearly made its way into the mass media. And that's another point of interest from my perspective.
All right, we'll be back.
Barbecue, the Butcher's Kitchen, would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ.
A Lotus broadcast station.
The power of radio since 1967.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now, back to the show.
I see stocks are up.
Okay.
Best month since 1974.
All right. Welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. And I just said all right because the stock market is coming back. And Leland said it was the best since 1974.
Now
you
the
didn't
best.
hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we are talking a little bit about the effects of COVID-19. And, people are getting very, very depressed. And, studies have shown that when men especially see naked female boobs, that calms them down. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yes, it's kind of goes back to the original
isn't it?
pacification.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
So but yet a lot of people, a lot of the pearl clutchers in our society are getting upset because people are not only drinking more booze and smoking more pot at home due to the COVID-19 lockdown, but they're also watching more porn. Imagine that.
Yeah, all the evidence suggests that. And Drudge is quick to point that out. You ever notice that about Drudge?
No.
Oh, yeah, he's always got something going on there on that subject matter.
Gee, he's a little sick guy, you know.
He's all over the place.
Yep.
I mean, he's no source for us anymore. That's for sure.
Right. But anyway, nobody's really looking at the effect of COVID-19 on sex workers because nobody likes to even talk about sex workers.
Well, only Nevada has any concern about that subject.
Yes. The mayor of Las Vegas spoke up, so that's good. But And did you hear what Pat Robertson said about what causes COVID-19?
I did. Are you going to share it with our audience?
Pat Robertson on his show said some of these young'uns are doing all kinds of things with their sex organs. When people do that, they transfer all kinds of chemicals from ladies' private parts. And that's where I think the virus comes from. We never had this kind of thing when I was coming up. But no one was committing oral sex back then. Oh, really?
According to him.
According to him, yeah.
The world according to Pat.
Yep. So that's the real cause. And, of course, other evangelicals are blaming the outbreak on homosexuality and God's punishment for all kinds of sins. So.
They always want to blame God for what happens.
Yep, just like the Jews
in our temple.
Isn't it amazing? Don't you see the? I mean, the Jews are always, if they win a war, God is with them. If
you know
they
why?
lose
Don't
a war, it's because they fell away from God.
You know why? Don't you?
No, why?
Because it's a Judeo-Christian culture.
Oh. But sex workers are trying to get their. To make it during this shutdown just like anybody else. Most of them should be getting their $1,200 stipend, but adult businesses are being denied their Small Business Association loans.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the 14th Amendment promises equal protection of the law. It does not say except for adult businesses. Mm-hmm. So they might have a case there.
I'm sure they do.
Yep. And so you can't say that only Democrats are using the epidemic to push their agenda. Republicans are also pushing their social conservative agenda by restricting abortions as elective and denying help to adult businesses and other,
Yeah, but I don't think that's the Republican agenda. I mean, I don't align myself with any of that. But I don't want my tax dollars to be supporting abortion.
Right.
That's a simple, basic.
Right. That's the difference.
It's an indecent thing to use my money to abort fetuses.
Right.
Or children.
Yes.
That's where it's going.
Yeah, so. And the Democrats tried to repeal the Hyde Amendment earlier, a few months earlier. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You all right?
Yeah, so the both sides are playing fast and loose, and at least the federal courts they're slapping back on the abortion restrictions,
and we're coming into the Supreme Court season.
Yes, they've already issued a few, a couple of
but June
rulings
is where
so
it
far.
Really ratchets up.
But there have been some success stories among sex workers. J.C. Cumberledge in Amherst, Ohio, was laid off by COVID-19. She now makes some badly needed money by selling pictures of her feet to fetishers she meets on Twitter. And there's no evidence that she was lured into her new job by a pimp.
Well, did somebody ask Pat Robertson about that?
Yeah, well, back in his day, nobody looked at women's feet like that. No. And so we have to be a little bit cautious when we look at these things.
In emergency circumstances like we're experiencing right now, there's a lot of things, a lot of bets are off, as to how things play out, and the extremists are there, and the loons are out there, and heaven knows the virus is still out there. So.
Yes. And I would just like to say, if you're visiting one of those websites with Roman numeral 30 after the URL, I found something I really thought was quite interesting, and you could probably watch this even with your wife or your sister or your girlfriend. It's naked hula-hoop dancers. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I didn't. I have not heard of that.
Really, and it's a real celebration of grace in the female form.
I'm always reading about the Federal Reserve and that sort of stuff. So.
But
by the way, we should end the Federal Reserve.
Yes, I think we should.
Yeah, I don't know why it's kind of a focus for me today during our show, but that's why it is, because you have it on your shirt.
Well, I'm one of the 10,000 or so people that watch the Ron Paul report every day now that we're all in lockdown. And, of course, he's still talking about it, and they have taken on a big, big balance sheet, so we'll see what happens there.
Well, that's the ultimate source of mischief.
Right.
Fiat money.
Yep. And so some people are calling for people like Mike Whitney, who's an economist that appears on the UN's Review regularly, and he's talking about with fiat money, in the old days, you often had a jubilee year, and debts were canceled, and we had an awful lot of debt.
Yeah, we might want to invoke that right about now, huh?
Yep. So, anyway, just keep watching those hula-hoop dancers, and things will get better.
Because what's the debt up to now? About $25 trillion?
Yep.
With all of this?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
And it's
not over.
Nope, it's not over. And so...
and GDP is down nearly 5% from...
and it's probably going to be worse in the next quarter.
Yeah, it should be the worst quarter of the year. Mm-hmm.
Airlines are down about 95%.
Nobody's flying.
I know. And what is international travel going to be like when this, in the next year or two?
Nobody's is going to want to go up, are they?
Right. I mean...
Of course, I don't want to fly anyway, but, for those that do like to fly and go places, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
There are places you can go and retire to on Social Security, even in Europe, and the rent is about 500 euros a month, and very nice little places like...
Portugal?
Northern Portugal, southern France, the Languedoc province, Budapest, and that's, our kind of country for alt-righters. A nice little expat community there. Even China and, of course, Thailand. Thailand is extremely cheap.
Right.
But if you can't get there, then you don't know if you'll be able to get back.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
That's the thing there, and so we have to keep an eye out.
I think it's going to be extraordinarily different, just within, say, 60, 90 days from now.
Extraordinarily different in 90 days from now?
Our social experiment that we've been going through here. I don't see any of it lasting. With the kinds of death rates that I've been seeing, 0.00052. This is intolerable. It's unsustainable. The economy, we wouldn't survive. We'd have to go back at considerable risk, if necessary, just to sustain the economy.
And I do agree with you, because I am kind of concerned that some of these studies are off, like the study in Santa Clara and done by doctors affiliated with the Hoover Institute, and the study in Los Angeles. They're being criticized. Ars Technica is. They were never formally peer-reviewed. They were put up in draft form, but there are some questions about it, about the methodology, about how accurate the tests were, and even about some of the math that was done in the study. So,
but the problem is that while
we can't keep the status quo,
right?
That's it.
And the dissemination and evaluation from any kind of a study of this information is brought forth can't be trusted when it comes from CNN and MSNBC.
No.
So
somebody compared the media barrage about COVID-19 to 2010 and the media barrage about global warming. They've just saturated the airwaves.
Mm-hmm.
And
so any kind of dissent can't be trusted rather than the story itself.
Right, exactly.
You can't have a world like that.
No, we can't.
And we do our best here at Talking Truth to Power, ladies.
Yeah, we try to cut through the fog here.
Even in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Or Sydney, Australia.
All right. Well, we hope to see you back again next week. Have a good night.
Please join us.